Hello everyone, my name is Vishwesha. I am an associate professor at the Center for Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. In our research laboratory, we study the fascinating phenomenon called self-organization in ecological systems. And in this short video, I am going to explain what exactly it is. When we think of ecology, we think of interactions among organisms across scales. We often start from individuals. What is the behavior of an individual? It could be an animal or a plant, or it could even be a microbe. And we try to understand how these interactions make groups of animals and how does interaction then scale to systems. In our laboratory, we primarily focus at the level of groups and ecosystems, and we try to understand how individual level behavior cause the patterns at the level of groups and ecosystems. And I will explain what I mean. So look at these two beautiful pictures. On the left side, you see a school of fish, and on the right side, you see a group of wildebeest moving on a landscape. And each individual in these groups have often local information. And if we not only look at the static pictures but the dynamics, in this video you will see groups of fish and flocks of birds who are moving in spectacular fashions. And when a predator attacks them, they continue to maintain a remarkable degree of cohesion and synchrony in their movement. It's almost as if these organisms have a mind of their own at the level of group. And however, if you think about it, each organism has local information about their environment. It could be the other individuals or the habitat, and yet they're able to produce these striking patterns. We try to understand these behaviors using a combination of techniques from computer simulations, mathematical models, and experiments and fieldwork. So broadly speaking, whenever we look at these group level, first one is how do animals show these group level patterns? These are also called proximate or mechanistic questions. Here we are interested in looking at what is the interaction between organisms that explains these existing patterns. On the other hand, we also want to understand why do organisms show these behaviors? What are the benefits of being in groups? What are the benefits of moving in groups? And what are the costs of moving in groups? Maybe understanding costs and benefits helps us explain organisms show this kind of behavior, while some species do not show this kind of behavior. Okay, so here is an example from a recent study in our lab to show the kind of work we do. For example, here you're seeing a video of fish schooling in a tank in our laboratory, native to southern India on the western coast. And if you put them in a fish tank without any stimuli, they begin to show these patterns. We ask, how do these fish exhibit this schooling behavior? Uh, or do they have a leader that is leading them to show these patterns? Or is it that these are all spontaneous patterns? For example, do they average the behavior of their neighbors and they follow their neighbors? Does this lead to this behavior? Or maybe they're not doing an averaging, maybe they just pick somebody randomly and copy their neighbors. Maybe they pick three individuals randomly and copy their behaviors. And when they're doing this selection again, do they have a preference for who to follow? Do they have a leader or do they have a family member who they want to follow? Or are they doing it randomly? We can ask all these kind of mechanistic questions of interactions. And what we find is the following. We find that this extremely simple rule can patterns schooling I showed you in the previous video. In fact, our study showed only two interactions. Only two interactions are necessary. The first interaction is what we call the pairwise copying interaction. A fish moving in this direction copies another individual nearby and turns towards that fish. This is called a copying interaction. Alternatively, fish may also do just stochastic turning without following anyone. A fish going in a given direction turns in one of the random directions possible. Now, if we put these two simple reactions, we showed that we can explain all the observed behaviors of dynamics of group schooling. How did we find this? We did experiments as using a simple tank and a video camera setup. And then once we have the videos, we track each individual's trajectories. We know the location of each fish over a period of time using a technique called image processing from the computer science. And once we know these trajectories of each fish, we see them as particles moving in space, just like physical particles. And then we use ideas of physics and nonlinear dynamics to analyze these data. And what we do is, just like physicists construct equations of motion of particles, we have constructed equations of motion for fish movement. And that might seem very surprising. We began with ecology, organisms, and I'm now talking about physics. How does it make sense, right? So in turn, one may wonder, how is physics connected to ecology? What in this cartoon picture you are seeing, on the left side, a magnet, and magnet has these. What a magnet consists of is a collection of interacting spins, which certain conditions all align with one another and produce magnetic field or become a magnet. Likewise, flocks, groups of animals who are moving, can be thought of as collection of interacting organisms who are also moving, unlike electrons who are often static in this case. Okay? So instead of entities of electrons, what we have is collection of living organisms who are also interacting. Therefore, there is not only a conceptual parallel, we find that there are mathematical parallels of how magnets work and how fish schools, birds of flock move in unison. Apart from the laboratory experiments I showed you, we also do field observations. In this case, what you're seeing is a herd of black buck, which are found in various parts of India, and this is a video from Gujarat, where we have used a drone to record the movement. And here again we ask the following questions: how do black buck herd move in group? Uh, do they have a leader? And when they are threatened by a predator, how do they escape? We can ask all these questions by remotely capturing their behaviors using cameras. And I have now just explained how to look at groups of animals. Let me now move to ecosystems. I'm going to show you some pictures again. This is a picture of what is called fairy circles from Africa. What you find is that in this spread of vegetation, you find these patches of bare areas. And we again try to understand, just like we looked at groups of animals, can we look at them as groups of this entire ecosystem has individuals which are plants and which are interacting with one another, and which also move by dispersal, not by active movement like animals do, but by dispersal of seeds. Here's another picture where you see also found on the ocean floor. So to sort of the way we think about these questions is patterns. They're also called organized patterns, arise from simple local interactions among organisms, in this case organisms of plants. And what are the mechanisms of interactions between plants and the landscape and resources like water, the nutrients, that can produce these kind of patterns? And can these patterns tell us anything about the stability of ecosystems? And for example, is it possible that some of these patterns here represent an unstable state, where some other patterns like the labyrinthine pattern may mean that the ecosystems are more stable? Of course, it could be the opposite. We can ask these kind of questions. We can also ask, can ecosystems abruptly collapse, and can these patterns and spatial organization make claims about or predictions about an imminent ecological collapse? We use a lot of mathematical and computational tools inspired from physics literature. We do experiments, we do field work. We also use a lot of satellite data across the globe. And the students from our lab are, of course, the driving force behind all the research. They come from a variety of backgrounds, from botany, zoology, ecology, biotechnology, and interestingly, a large fraction of our lab also has physics and mathematics students and engineering students. Engineering from all disciplines: computer science, information, electrical, and mechanical engineers. Okay, and to do this research, we need lots of funds, and we get them from a variety of agencies, starting from IISc, Department of Science and Technology, Biotechnology, ISRO, and so on. And here I'm providing the link to our lab webpage and contact details. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions and if you find our work interesting. Thank you very much.